The hip-hop world has always been filled with scandals, messy relationships, and shocking betrayals. But nothing hits harder than when friendships collapse under the weight of secrets. Young Jock, known for his wild sense of humor, flashy lifestyle, and headline-grabbing relationships, has never been shy about putting his personal business on full display. But this time, things got a little too real when his closest ally, Kirk Frost, crossed the line. At 56 years old, young Jock has reached a breaking point, and he has now sent a chilling last warning to Kirk Frost. Stay away from Kendra, or things will never be the same. For years, young Jock and Kirk Frost have had one of the most complicated friendships in the love and hip-hop universe. On screen, they've laughed together, thrown wild parties, and even supported each other through personal drama. But behind the cameras, their bond has been tested time and time again, mostly by infidelity, lies, and questionable choices. Still, no one expected things to reach this boiling point. The spark that lit the fire? Kendra Robinson, Jock's wife, has been a central figure in his storyline for years. Their relationship hasn't exactly been a fairy tale. Between Jock's cheating scandals, his baby mama drama, and his constant need for attention, Kendra has often been portrayed as the strong woman holding it all together. She's stood by Jock through some of his worst decisions, even when fans questioned why she continued to tolerate his behavior. But now, it looks like the tables have turned, and Jock is the one questioning loyalty. It all began when rumors started, spreading that Kirk Frost, who is supposed to be Jock's brother-like figure, was getting a little too comfortable with Kendra. At first, Jock brushed it off. He thought the whispers were just another example of fans and blogs trying to stir up unnecessary drama. After all, Kirk has been married to Rashida for decades, and they've built a whole brand around their relationship surviving the test of time, even after infidelity nearly destroyed them. Why would Kirk ever get involved with Kendra? But as time went on, Jock began noticing things he couldn't ignore. Kendra and Kirk were being spotted together outside of the usual family and business events. Conversations that were supposed to be private between husband and wife somehow kept finding their way to Kirk's ears. Even small gestures like Kirk checking in on Kendra more than usual started to feel off. To Jock, it was no longer about friendship. It was about boundaries being crossed. By the time Jock turned 56, he realized he had no more patience left for games. This wasn't just about jealousy or insecurity. It was about respect. In Jock's eyes, Kirk had already lost credibility when he cheated on Rashida multiple times and dragged her through public embarrassment. And now, Jock feared Kirk might be trying to bring that same chaos into his own marriage. Jock had spent years working to clean up his image and prove to Kendra and the world that he could be a faithful, responsible husband. And he wasn't about to let Kirk undo all of that. According to insiders close to the situation, the tension between Jock and Kirk reached its peak during a private gathering that was supposed to be a celebration of success. Drinks were flowing, music was blasting, and everyone was in good spirits, until Jock caught Kirk and Kendra in what looked like an intense conversation in the corner. Witnesses say Jock's entire energy shifted. His smile dropped, and his usual playful personality was replaced with a sharp edge of anger. He pulled Kirk aside and reportedly told him, in no uncertain terms, that this was the last time he'd let something like that slide. Sources say Jock's exact words were, "I don't care what's going on, I'm warning you now. Don't ever cross me when it comes to my wife. At my age, I don't play about my household anymore. Stay away from Kendra." Those words hit like a bombshell. For years, Jock had been the one everyone accused of being reckless, unfaithful, and immature. But this time, it was Jock drawing the line, refusing to let his marriage be tested by someone he once considered family. What made the warning even more powerful was Jock's age. At 56, he's not the same man who once thrived on messy drama and public scandals. He's older, wiser, and more protective of his legacy. Jock has kids who are old enough to see everything unfold online, and he's painfully aware that every mistake he makes is now magnified. He doesn't want to be remembered as the man who let his marriage fall apart because he couldn't control his circle. So, when he looked Kirk in the eyes and delivered that last warning, it wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of maturity. But of course, in the world of hip-hop and reality TV, nothing stays private for long. Word of the confrontation spread quickly, and fans immediately took sides. Some blamed Kirk, pointing out that he has a history of crossing boundaries and making reckless decisions when it comes to women. They argued that Kirk should have known better than to even create the appearance of impropriety with Jock's wife. Others, however, felt Jock might be overreacting, projecting his own insecurities from years of cheating onto his friend. After all, Kirk has his own marriage to focus on. Would he really risk everything just to play with Jock's household? The controversy has now sparked an even bigger conversation about loyalty and friendships. Should Jock have trusted Kirk enough to give him the benefit of the doubt? Or was he right to protect Kendra and draw a firm boundary before things spiraled out of control? Fans on social media are debating this nonstop, with some even dragging Rashida into the mess, questioning why she continues to defend Kirk despite his shady behavior. Meanwhile, Kendra has stayed mostly silent, which has only fueled speculation. Some believe she's trying to avoid adding fuel to the fire. Others think her silence speaks volumes, suggesting that maybe there really was something inappropriate going on. Whatever the case, Jock's public image has shifted. Instead of being seen as the messy one in his marriage, he's now being applauded for standing up and defending his wife. Something fans say they didn't expect from him. Still, the real question is, will Kirk listen? Jock made it clear that this was his last warning, but if history has taught us anything, Kirk Frost doesn't always learn from his mistakes. If he continues to push boundaries, things could get ugly fast, not just between him and Jock, but between their wives, their families, and their entire love and hip-hop circle. For now, all eyes are on what happens next. Jock has drawn the line in the sand, but the hip-hop world knows one thing for sure. When a man like young Jock finally loses patience at 56, he means every word he says. And if Kirk dares to test him again, the fallout could destroy more than just a friendship. It could shatter families, careers, and reputations. The tension between young Jock and Kirk Frost had been brewing for years, but this time it had reached a point where Jock couldn't just laugh it off or play it cool anymore. At 56 years old, Jock had lived enough to know when a man was trying him, and Kirk had crossed that invisible line one too many times. Kendra, Jock's wife, had been his pride, his backbone, and his peace in a world full of chaos. So when whispers started circulating that Kirk was once again getting too close to her, casual conversations, private moments that weren't adding up, and late-night exchanges that felt far from innocent, Jock decided this was the final straw. What made it worse was Kirk's history. Fans of love and hip-hop knew Kirk Frost wasn't exactly the poster boy for loyalty. From his messy marriage with Rashida to scandal after scandal, Kirk's name had been dragged through the mud for years. Rashida had forgiven him more times than people could count, but the streets never forgot. Jock knew exactly who Kirk was and what he was capable of, and that was why this situation was so dangerous. Because if Kirk could betray his own wife repeatedly, what would stop him from disrespecting someone else's marriage? Behind closed doors, Jock's patience had already worn thin. Friends close to him revealed that he had confronted Kendra several times, asking her directly about Kirk. Kendra denied any wrongdoing, insisting that she and Kirk were just friends, nothing more. But Jock wasn't convinced. He had been in the game long enough to know how men like Kirk operated. Smooth words, fake loyalty, and a tendency to push boundaries. Jock began connecting dots. The little favors Kirk did for Kendra. The phone calls. That went longer than expected. The way Kirk always managed to pop up wherever she was. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was calculated. Things finally came to a boiling point during an industry event where Jock, Kendra, Rashida, and Kirk all happened to be in the same room. Jock noticed Kirk leaning just a little too close when talking to Kendra, his hand brushing her arm in a way that made Jock's blood pressure rise. Jock didn't cause a scene right then, but the fire was burning inside him. By the time the night was over, Jock had made up his mind. Kirk was about to get his last warning, and it would be delivered with no filters. Backstage, away from the cameras and flashing lights, Jock cornered Kirk. Witnesses said the air shifted instantly. Jock's voice was low but sharp, the kind of tone that lets you know a man means every word he's saying. "Kirk," Jock started, his eyes locked on him. "I've let a lot of things slide over the years, but you keep playing with fire and I'm done biting my tongue. Stay away from Kendra. I mean it. I mean it." Kirk, always the type to laugh things off, tried to brush it aside. He chuckled nervously and replied, "Man, come on, it ain't even like that. You know me, Jock. I got Rashida. I ain't checking for your girl." But Jock wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, his face inches from Kirk's, and repeated his words slower this time. "I said stay away from my wife." The room went quiet. People nearby pretended not to watch, but everyone was listening. Jock wasn't yelling, but the weight behind his words was heavier than a shout. This wasn't a warning to be taken lightly. It was a line drawn in the sand. Later, that night, social media exploded with speculation. Fans who caught glimpses of the interaction started tweeting about the Jock and Kirk showdown, and soon the blogs picked it up. Screenshots of Jock's stern face while talking to Kirk went viral, with fans writing captions like, "Jock ain't playing about Kendra," and "Kirk better chill before Jock takes it there." The drama had officially gone public. Rashida, meanwhile, was said to be embarrassed by the whole situation. After spending years defending Kirk through his scandals, the idea of him once again being linked to another woman, even if it was just rumors, was humiliating. Sources close to her said she felt like Jock's warning made Kirk look guilty by default. She tried to play it off on camera, but deep down, it struck a nerve. Kendra herself was caught in the middle, trying to diffuse the tension. She insisted that Jock was overreacting and that Kirk was harmless, but Jock wasn't hearing it. From his perspective, no man should ever be that comfortable around another man's wife, especially one with Kirk's track record. Jock felt like Kendra was underestimating how far Kirk might go, and he wasn't about to let history repeat itself at his expense. As the fallout continued, Jock doubled down publicly. In a candid interview, he didn't call out Kirk by name, but fans knew exactly who he was talking about. Jock said, "At this point in my life, I don't have time for games. Respect my marriage, respect my family. If you can't do that, then you're not my friend. Period." That was enough to confirm that he was drawing a permanent boundary. Kirk, on the other hand, tried to laugh it off in his own interview, saying people were blowing things out of proportion. But his body language told a different story. He looked tense, defensive, and slightly rattled. The usually smug Kirk seemed like a man who realized he had finally pushed the wrong button. Jock wasn't one of those men who let things slide indefinitely, and at 56, he had nothing left to prove. This wasn't about ego, it was about respect, loyalty, and protecting what was his. Behind the cameras, the feud between the two men only grew colder. Where there was once brotherhood and business connections, there was now distance. Jock stopped, pulling up to Kirk's events, stopped promoting anything he was a part of, and started making it clear through his actions that the friendship had been permanently damaged. Fans could feel the tension every time the two shared the same stage, and producers of Love and Hip Hop reportedly leaned into it, knowing the drama was rated gold. By the time the season wrapped, Jock's message had been delivered loud and clear. This was Kirk's last chance. He wasn't threatening him physically, but he was making it known that if Kirk continued crossing boundaries with Kendra, the consequences would go far beyond words. Jock wasn't the type to give the same warning twice, and at 56, he wasn't about to waste his time on back-and-forth games. This was the end of the line, and Kirk knew it. The silence after young Jock's final warning hung in the air heavier than anyone could have imagined. At 56, a point in life when most men were supposed to be winding down drama, Jock was still standing in the middle of it all. Only this time, it wasn't about fame, music, or industry gossip. This was personal. Kendra wasn't just his wife. She was the center of a storm Jock refused to let spiral out of control. The words he had unleashed toward Kirk carried decades of history, the kind of history that was complicated, messy, and laced with betrayal. And though Jock had always been the playful one, the guy cracking jokes and keeping things light, there was nothing funny about the way his voice carried that night. It was a warning, and it was final. Kirk, on the other hand, wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially not by someone he'd shared so many years with in Atlanta's tight-knit scene. He stood there, face tightening, as if he was deciding whether to lash back or let it go. Rashida's hand on his arm was the only thing keeping him grounded. She could feel it, the heat rising in him, the pride refusing to let another man dictate boundaries. But what could he really say? Jock wasn't just talking about trust. He was talking about respect. Man, you got me twisted, Kirk finally muttered, trying to walk that fine line between defending himself and not escalating things further. Ain't nobody checking for Kendra. You know I respect you, dog. But Jock wasn't having it. His eyes never left Kirk's face. Respect? He repeated, his tone sharper now. Respect don't come with you being in her ear every other week, Kirk. Respect don't come with slick comments when I ain't around. Respect is distance. And I told you. I'm not saying it again. The room grew tense. Rashida quickly jumped in, urging everyone to calm down before things went too far. Look, we not doing this, she insisted. Not here, not like this. Jock, you know Kirk ain't trying to cross no lines. And Kirk, maybe you don't see it, but the way you come off sometimes, it don't help. Everybody needs to step back before this becomes something it don't need to be. But Jock wasn't ready to just let it go. He leaned in, lowering his voice, but every word was like thunder. I let a lot slide, Rashida. A lot. But I'm too old now to play the fool. At 56, I've learned that you can't keep letting people test you. Kirk, I don't care what we've been through. I don't care about the years. We not boys if you can't respect my marriage. Those words cut deeper than anyone expected. It wasn't just about Kirk and Kendra anymore. It was about friendship, loyalty, and the cracks that had been forming for years. Young Jock and Kirk Frost had shared stages, shared secrets, and shared too many nights in the Atlanta scene where lines were blurred. But Jock's patience had finally run out. Kendra, who had been silent through most of the exchange, finally spoke up, her voice firm but emotional. I don't need all this back and forth, she said. I've told you both before. I don't want to be in the middle of this mess. Jock, I'm with you. Always. Kirk, I don't know what you think you're doing, but it stops now. I don't need no side conversations, no unnecessary texts, none of it. Respect my marriage, respect my man, and let's move on. Her words were final, but the damage was already done. For the first time, the foundation of young Jock and Kirk's brotherhood looked irreparable. The tension was so thick it left everyone uneasy. Even Rashida couldn't hide her disappointment. She knew her husband had a way of pushing boundaries, but she never thought it would come to this. Later that night, social media started buzzing. Word of the confrontation had already spread, thanks to a few witnesses who couldn't resist leaking snippets. Fans dissected the drama instantly. Some sided with Jock, praising him for standing up as a husband and protecting his marriage, while others claimed he was being overly sensitive, reading too much into Kirk's actions. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that the friendship between Jock and Kirk might never recover. Jock himself took to Instagram Live the next morning. Sitting in his car, visibly tired but still passionate, he addressed the situation head-on. I ain't got no time for games, he said to thousands of viewers tuned in. I'm too grown, man. At 56, my peace means more than any friendship, more than any industry connection. If you cross my marriage, if you cross my wife, you cross me. And I don't need no explanation for that. Loyalty ain't optional, it's required. The comments lit up instantly. Fans flooded the chat with support, praising Jock for being real, for putting his wife first, for showing maturity. But some still stirred the pot, asking if there was more to the story. Did Kirk actually cross a line? Was there something Jock wasn't saying? The speculation only fueled more drama, keeping the tension alive. Meanwhile, Kirk stayed silent. No posts, no lives, no responses. It was Rashida who subtly addressed it on her page, posting a picture with the caption, "Respect is everything. Without it, there's nothing. Moving forward with love and peace, only." Fans immediately connected it to the incident, interpreting it as a message directed at both her husband and young Jock. Behind the scenes, though, things weren't as peaceful. People close to the group revealed that Jock and Kirk hadn't spoken since the warning. Calls went unanswered, texts were left unread, and every mutual friend felt the tension. What once was a brotherhood now felt like an unresolved feud waiting to explode again. For Jock, the moment became a turning point. At 56, he realized that boundaries weren't just important, they were essential. Too many years in the industry had taught him that blurred lines lead to broken trust. And if it meant losing a friend to protect his marriage, then so be it. He wasn't about to let history repeat itself or allow rumors to creep into his household. Kendra, though frustrated by being caught in the middle, quietly admired the way Jock stood firm. For years, she had asked him to take certain things more seriously, to put his foot down when necessary. And now, finally, he did. Though the fallout was messy, it showed her where she truly stood in his life. As for Kirk, he was left at a crossroads. His pride didn't want him to apologize, but his conscience knew that Jock wasn't playing games. The whispers in Atlanta were getting louder. Was Kirk just careless with boundaries, or was there really more to the story? Either way, the stain of suspicion wouldn't fade easily. By the end of the week, the storyline had taken on a life of its own. Blogs ran with headlines about Jock's final warning, YouTube channels broke down every detail, and fans debated nonstop in the comments. But while the public argued behind closed doors, one thing was clear. Young Jock had spoken his last word on the matter. There would be no more warnings, no more conversations, no more room for doubt. Either Kirk respected the boundary, or the friendship was officially dead. At 56, Jock had finally drawn the line. And whether the world agreed or not, he was ready to live with the consequences, because protecting his wife and his peace came first, no matter who got cut off in the process. If you've been following this explosive saga between young Jock, Kirk, and Kendra, you already know things are only getting more heated. Jock just sent a warning that could change everything, but the question is, will Kirk actually listen, or will he push things even further until it all blows up? Fans are already taking sides, and the drama is nowhere near finished. If you want all the raw details, the behind-the-scenes tea, and the next shocking moves, make sure you stick with it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Jock's warning will be the end of this messy triangle, or just the beginning of a bigger war? Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and don't miss the next update. Because trust me, this story is about to get even wilder.